was just these two teachings that I was raised with, just knowing stories about God, but not really having a relationship with Him. And so as I was growing up, my father passed away. I was very young. My father passed away. And my mom became a single mother when I was around 7 years old. But that, the Lord God had used this for our good. My mom started to pray constantly, and she really started to seek God for our future and the children's future. And so God really answered that prayer. And suggestions were made to her that she should leave the country because it would have been tough in Sudan being a single mom and raising young kids. And so the Lord really opened the door in that time in my life, where we, probably a year or two after he passed away, we left the country and moved to Egypt. And we were there for another year and a half, and by God's grace also, doors were opened again to make us be able to come to this country. I actually know people who are still in Egypt trying to make their way out of the country, 20 years, 30 years. And so God really was with us through that time as well, opening these doors. And so as I came here, I was very young, maybe around 10 years old, 11. Went to primary school, had an education, went to high school, and life was very good, everything was very new. Australia was a beautiful country, and I started to learn. I got educated and realized, wow, saw the map and realized this is where I was in the map, and just cool things like that. And around high school, I just started to drift away because a lot of my friends were going into boarding schools during high school time. So year 7, year 8, they were all going to boarding school in Bathurst. So I was kind of, I wasn't accepted. I tried to enter into the boarding school. Everyone that I knew, the friends that I knew, and they were all just being accepted into this school, and I wanted to also go there with friends. But no doors were open, so I was stuck in my just normal day schools. So that really messed me up, emotionally, because I became lonely. I didn't have people who looked to friends, people who lived next door to me were now gone. And so I didn't really have any person to hang out with. So around that time, I sought friends outside of where I used to live, maybe next station. I started to look for friends who lived 20 minutes away from my house, 30 minutes, and it was a distance from where I lived, and I had to travel to go see these guys, my new friends who I now became my friends. And some of these guys were really also struggling as well, because they were also outcasts as well. They didn't have much in their home, the parents probably are single mom as well, and just a lot of trouble was also in their houses. And so we connected, and we became real good friends, and just became a group of people who I hung out with. And some of these guys struggled with things too, like cigarettes and smoke and alcohol and partying. And so I picked up these habits as well, even though I didn't want to do any. There was no reason for me to be doing these things, but since my friends were also involved, I picked them up as well, and I found myself indulging in these things, man, and years just flew after that. I think I was in that lifestyle with these new friends for about 6 years before I realized, man, this is a miserable life, and I'm tired of it. I'm sick all the time. I'm never home. I am broke because I spend my money all the time. And so life was very difficult for me, being in the streets and not really, and just adopting these guys as my family. And so I realized, man, this is a hard life. So I started to really think in my heart, no, there's got to be more to this. I started to really think deep inside, like, I'm changing, I'm not the same person as I was. I'm doing things that I regret now even to speak about in public. And so life was tough, but my mom was still praying during that time. She was constantly praying for me and my family that we would just have the best in life. She brought us to this country, and that we would have the best of it. But that there was a real block in that journey of life. That lifestyle that I had was destroying me. And so I started to call out to God. I remembered the story about Jesus and what I was raised with. Even in the Islamic culture, they had they had Jesus in it too. So I sort of had two pictures of who Jesus was. One where he died for me, and another one he was just a prophet. And so I had these being raised. And sometimes I went to a mosque, to go with my father, and sometimes I would be mostly in the church with my mom. And so just realized these stories came back to mind, and I started to think about God in a more serious, sober way. Even though I was influenced with things in my life still, I had drugs and alcohol, I was deep in these things, but man, the thoughts of God were really starting to clear in life and what I wanted for myself, so I cried out. But God was kind. He started to bring people into my life. I saw guys like Moses coming out and speaking into me, even though I had a bottle in my hand, and he was just very, very convicting, very, just the guy was really speaking the word of God, and the Lord used him, and many other people as well. I think I've seen Pastor also many times outside as I was going to grab a bottle or something, and I would see them, just worshiping, and I would just look as I was getting up the escalators. These things started to speak into me more because I was seeking God in my heart, and my eyes was being open to His people that were around. And so I had a choice to make at that time. The Lord gave me a choice. He said, you're seeking for me, and I'm revealing myself to you. I'm showing you. You see my people everywhere now. And it was becoming actually scary. And I realized, wow, God was actually reaching out to me because I was asking deep inside, And so He left me with a choice, and He told me, give me your life. He didn't say it like clear words, but that's what He was telling me as these things were being revealed. He's telling me, now give me your life, I will change you. And I realized I had addictions that I needed to get rid of. And I made a choice, I ran into other Christians, and they clearly told me, you should get baptized, and give yourself to Christ. And I would always hold it off, always, and I would just try to keep my life, but I realized I really needed that still. But when I made that choice to get baptized, man, I still have my addictions as well. But slowly, these things started to fall off of me. I can't tell you how it happened. But there was a choice that I had to make. I made a choice, conscious choice that, look, I'm going to serve you, God. I've got baptized. I'm still struggling with addictions. But as I made that choice, these things automatically started to fall off of me. And I realized I had power over these things now, and I've overcome them. And it's been years now since I've touched these things. And Jesus started to reveal Himself to me. He more clearly, His love entered my heart, and I became a new person. I contacted Moses the first thing when I just told him, I put post up and contacted him because he's the only Christian I knew who was going out and talking to people. And so I contacted him. I said, come down, And so he was surprised to see me, and I've become a Christian. And he was one of the guys who ministered to me when I was in the world. But man, Christ has done these things. I can't tell you it happened in one day, but it was just constantly knocking that door and seeking His face, even though I was in that lifestyle, deep in it, constantly asking God for help. He came and honored that, and He really changed my life. My family is shocked. Even cousins, relatives overseas too. They say, "Wow," and people thought I was the worst in my family. I was the worst, always coming home, and just getting into fights, having drugs in the house, and just a bad guy. But the Lord really has changed me, man, and made me a light in my house. And so I give all that glory to Jesus Christ, and so He became so real to me, and He would visit me. He would visit me in the Spirit. He would visit me in dreams. He would tell me things to come. He's told me so many things to come, and He's connected me with guys like you guys, too. And sometimes I get shocked when I just sit down and I realize, like, look where I am, look where I've come. I'm like, wow, I've never seen this, but it's all by God's power, coming to Him with a humble heart and saying, God, I'm struggling with this thing. Please come and do a work in me, and really sincerely ask Him, and He will answer that prayer for you.